Welcome back to the Storycraft Society. In this week's episode, we're going to be crafting fallen logs from our Goblin Arrows Ambush set into your story. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name's Garmin, and this is part 2 of our 4-part series on the Goblin Arrows Ambush set from Lost Mines of Phandelver. For those who missed it last week, the episode was on rocks. There will be a link to that video in the description below, and there should be a card somewhere above my head that will take you there as well. But this week, we're going to be talking about fallen logs. Now, specifically this technique that we're going to be using today to make these fallen logs, I got from a video on the Crafting Muse's channel. I'll put a link to her channel in the description below. But there's not a whole bunch else that I can say about it. Let's just get into it and start making some logs.
All right, so for our materials list, we're going to need scrap XPS insulation foam. We're going to need a hobby knife and some paint brushes. We're going to need Black Magic Craft base coat, which is matte Mod Podge and black paint, various craft paints, mostly browns, and then our hot glue gun. So to start this project, we're going to grab a scrap piece of just insulation foam that we actually, I think the scrap came from the rock build from last week. And then what you're going to do is just cut it down into generally the shape of a log. You're going to kind of round it over the top. You don't have to be too particular in this step because we're going to be covering the top part of the log. But just get it close to the general shape. When you're done, it should look a little something like this. But the key here is that you're going to actually cut the ends off so they're flat, and then you're going to cut a U shape into the end. What this is going to do is simulate kind of the hollowed out part of the log without actually having to hollow out the entire piece of foam. Then you're going to take the point of the hobby knife and just start pulling that foam out. And once you've pulled it all the way out, it should look something like this. So now we're going to break out the hot glue gun. We're going to plug it in there. And then what we're going to start doing is running strips of hot glue the entire way down the piece, leaving about the width of one strand of hot glue in between where there's no foam. So it's going to be bead of hot glue the entire way down, nothing, bead of hot glue, nothing, bead of hot glue, nothing, and eventually it'll look something like this. Then as soon as that hardens up and is dry, then we're going to now run beads of hot glue in the gaps. Don't forget that while you're doing it to go all the way over the ends onto not just on top, but going all the way out to the ends and covering up those little lips that stick out. A little trick that I've come up with is once you put the hot glue beads along the bottom, you can take the flat side of the log and actually push it down into your craft mat and let that cool, and then just easily break it free, and now you've got a perfectly flat bottom. Your finished piece should look a little something like this. So once we got that finished, we're going to move on to our base coat. So we're going to be doing the Black Magic Craft base coat, which is just a 50-50 mixture of black paint and matte Mod Podge. You're going to coat the entire piece in that, top and bottom. And one thing that I've actually noticed is sometimes with the hot glue, you may need to put multiple coats of this to get full coverage on top. But just go until you get a nice, good, even coverage, and then we're going to move on to paint. So here you're actually going to notice I'm watering down some dark brown, and it could be any dark brown. And then what I'm going to do is just paint literally the entire piece. I'm going to try to go down in all of the crevices. I'm going to try to go down, get it full 100% coverage, and thinning down the cheap craft paint with water seems to make it flow a little better and get down further into those cracks. When you're done, it'll look something like this, and then we're going to move on to highlighting. So the first highlight I'm going to do is with a honey brown, and then the second highlight is going to be with a tan. And so I'm going to first start with the honey brown. you see I put it into the cup with the other one. I don't care if these colors mix because again, having a mixture of the colors is gonna end up looking more natural and blended than if I just did all of the colors separately. And then what I'm doing here is I'm just getting a little bit of paint onto my brush and then lightly brushing over the top surfaces. I'm not trying to go down into the cracks, but I'm just going over the top surfaces of the log to start to get those bark-looking pieces of hot glue to start standing out a little more. Once you have the honey brown, it'll look like that. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing with a tan. And what's funny here is you'll actually notice that I added a little of my dark brown to the tan just because I thought that the tan looked a little bit too bright. Feel free to do that sort of thing. Mix your colors, blend your colors to try to get the exact color that you see in your head. But we're gonna do that same thing. We're just gonna try to hit the highest areas and you should end up with something like this. So my last step for painting the bark is I actually just get a pure little dot of the tan that I had. And I'm gonna go down over the top of the log and I'm gonna simulate sunlight by taking that brightest color and only going down from the top. I'm gonna avoid going up and always downstroke. That way I get a very natural look to the log like it was lit from the top. So now we're gonna move to a flat black. We're gonna take that and just get a little dot of it and we're going to paint out the holes on the two ends of our fallen logs so that it looks like it's hollow the whole way through. Just take your time, be careful, avoid getting the black paint up on your brown and you should have a nice finished product.
So that's going to wrap up part 2 of our Goblin Arrows Ambush series, where we have a cool new piece of terrain to put onto our table, one that's going to get a lot of use, not just specifically in this scenario. If you like these videos, please consider subscribing, leave a like and a comment down below. That stuff goes a long way. And hit the notification bell if you want to know when our next episode is going to go live, where we're going to be making these cute little bushes. So I will catch you all next week.